spectrum survival on Survival Talk Radio. Join us for Dad Talks, political debates, and pro-gun conversation.
To all of you from Survival Talk Radio, we wish you a happy new year and that all your New Year's resolutions come to fruition.
You're listening to Survival Talk Radio, the Survival Mindset episode with Daniel-Shrigley.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing and sharing my show and each episode. I really encourage you, please share with your friends and family on as many social media networks as you have. It really helps with the growth of the show. And as you know, we are monotonized through our commercial advertising. So, the advertisers is what funds the show. I've set up a Patreon account, but I'm going to wait until the show kind of grows a little bit more to really promote that Patreon account. So today's episode is going to be about the survival mindset. Now, a few years back, I wrote an article called The Psychology-of-Survival, the Survival Mindset, and I would like to get back into touching on that a little bit for everybody, and then maybe even expand about that on this episode. I wrote that I wrote that article probably back in like 2013 or 2014. So it's been a little while, and it's always good to take, good content and recycle it. A lot of things in the survival industry always remain the same. And that would be like the fundamentals of survival, which is fire, water, shelter, and food. And the only thing that may change is situation dictates your environment. And, so you may be in an environment where fire is the most important thing for you, or your situation, fire is the most important thing for you to acquire, and then maybe shelter. And then sometimes it's the opposite. It's where I need to get a shelter, and then I can go ahead and get fire, and then water, and then food. Water is always going to be important. So if you are carrying water with you and you have enough to sustain you, then obviously you can focus on other things. But you should always be cognitive to find a source of water, and the cleaner and the more pure, the better. But you should always remember to purify your water and even filter it. So purifying your water, you can boil it and then filter it. So boiling it kills the bacteria, it kills Cryptosporidium and Giardia and other bacteria and algae and things that you don't want to consume that could potentially make you very sick, or worse, kill you. So you're going to want to filter your water. That helps you to clear it up as far as like maybe color, maybe it has a little discoloring to it. And the most important part of filtering water, if you're doing it primitive style, is to have campfire charcoal. Because the charcoal attracts at the molecular level. It draws things to it. It's almost like a magnet, and it draws it and traps it to the charcoal. And so having charcoal broken up into pieces, kind of like maybe the size of maybe your fish tank rocks or something, or very fine gravel. I wouldn't want to get it too fine, but you definitely want to break it up a little bit. And then using sand, soil, and green vegetation and just make layers. And the more layers you can make, obviously the better. And if you can make 2 layers of charcoal with maybe some sand and all that in between the layers of the charcoal, and then have some earth on top of that, with some green vegetation. You want to have, a minimum of 5 layers, but a good goal is maybe 7 layers, with 2 layers of charcoal, but the minimum 1 layer of charcoal. And that would definitely, you would want that to be maybe your last layer, because naturally the earth will filter water. And that helps with the palate taste of the water too. It will improve it a little bit. And it also helps you to remove any small debris that may be floating in your water, like bugs or whatever. But the boiling is really important, because that's what's going to definitely kill anything that's going to hurt your body. So having this survival mindset, you definitely want to be cognitive of the fundamentals of survival. And you need to realize that those fundamentals pivot with what situation you find yourself in. So if you're in the desert, then you definitely know that water becomes a top priority, because you can live quite a long time without actually eating some food. But water, you can't go very long without water, depending on your health condition and how hydrated you were before you got into the situation and how much water you have on you. Water becomes a major commodity for you that you need to acquire and have a source. And also, if you're going to travel, you're definitely going to want to have the ability to transport that water that you did find long enough for you to find more water as you're trying to egress that dangerous situation you found yourself in. And that is for the outdoor environment type of survival. And, here we are at this time of year that this episode is being launched. It's the 29th of December, 2021. And we are in the midst of having, where I'm located in California, in the Sierra Nevadas, a lot of snow. And in recent days, 17 or more feet of snow have fallen in the Truckee area, or the Donner Lake Pass area. And some of the roads have been shut down. So with that being said, we always have to be prepared before we get ourselves into situations of survival. And yeah, you can find yourself into a survival situation, easily, even in the modern era, driving your car, several hundred miles and going from a moderate temperate area into a very cold mountainous terrain area with snow and ice. And so being prepared and thinking ahead, having your chains, having your snow tires, and having your survival kit, for not only for you to survive in case something really bad happened, and maybe some first aid kit, trauma kit, some tourniquets and things like that, and fire starting mechanisms, and maybe some shelter, like tent or tarp or something, and the ability to have a fire accelerant, and fire striker, so there's so much that you need to have to truly be prepared, even for traveling across country. Maybe you're going to go snow skiing, and anything could happen, especially if you're going to leave the major, thoroughfares, the highways, and go, up a dirt road somewhere, or maybe you're trying to go to some private land, some private property that, the average person doesn't go out to, that you have access to. Maybe you own land, maybe you have a friend with a cabin somewhere, so, we need to be prepared, and we have to have a vehicle survival kit in the wintertime. And that means, maybe a couple extra spark plugs for your car, maybe an extra fan belt for your car, maybe having a couple extra, extra headlight bulb for your car, maybe having a battery jumper box that you plug in and it's fully charged before you head on out. And then if you find yourself, because it's cold outside and you need to jump your battery because your battery died, you can go out there and jump it. Otherwise you would be stranded. So it's just having all these things that you're thinking ahead, and having that vehicle survival kit, and having the ability to plug a tire, and if you get a flat, and repair it yourself, and keeping a can of Fix-A-Flat in your car, or even if it means you have to have a bicycle pump, it's better than not having anything, but you want to keep your vehicle roadworthy for any situation, whether it's winter or summer or whatever. And you should always have water on hand in your car, especially when you're traveling great distances. So if you did get lost and you were out doing some snow skiing, they were looking for a guy just a couple days ago that got lost snow skiing, and the ski resorts had to shut down, and they had to go looking for that person. And I never heard back if they found them yet. So hopefully they did. And, there's the aspect of having that survival mindset of knowing how to let yourself be found and not making it more difficult for search and rescue, and things that you should do ahead of time. So if you did get into a desperate situation, a survival situation, that people know kind of a general area of where you're located to start looking for you if you did not show up at a specific time, or you did need to call for help, and up in the mountains, you can't rely on cellular service. But they do have emergency cellular radios and stuff like that you can buy that use the satellite to send out a radio signal. They have beacon devices that you hit a beacon and it sends your 10-digit grid location to emergency services with a beacon, and it uses the satellite. And those are all great, and I really encourage that if you're going to be going out, especially by yourself, that's something that should be mandatory for you. You can't rely on cellular phones all the time, and and not everybody's carrying a SATCOM, so there's options out there for you. Carrying a radio, whereas your cell phone might not work, but you're carrying like a walkie-talkie, that can really help, especially if you're on a repeater system. But definitely that radio could push out, 5-10 miles, and sometimes in some cases even further, and that will really help, because you can start jumping channels to call for help, and you might possibly get somebody. But it sure is a valuable tool, and it's a good prep item. So having, the proper equipment is a part of the survival mindset. Because if you're unprepared and you're going into a situation fully unprepared, that's not good for you when your life depends on it. So I always tell people, evaluate what you're going to do and think of your worst case scenario and plan for that one. And then involve other people in on your plan and map out where you're going to go and show people where you're going to be. I'm going to be skiing here, but I like to go off trail a little bit, but I won't go further than this, and I should be in this general area, and if you did become lost, it would be a great tool for you to figure out how to signal and communicate. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can use a reflective mirror, you can use fire, you can use signal and light, and and you can use contrasting on the landscape. So if you're in very white snow-covered areas or light tan or light green, you always want to use something that contrasts the earth that you're in. And so that could be like you're taking a bunch of light-colored rocks and you're spelling the word help on the ground, or SOS, and then you're going to want to kind of hover in that area, and you're going to want to do that in a clearing area. And if sometimes sending smoke signals isn't enough of a signal either. So you might want to figure out other things too. If you did have radio communications with somebody and you're like, hey, I'm lost, I'm up on this mountain, I can start a signal fire and put up some really dark smoke, and you would put up, dark smoke by putting on green vegetation onto the fire, and that will create a darker colored smoke. Or if you're in a dark area, you want to use a light colored smoke, so you're going to put in more dead material, dry material. And if you put up like sappy material, obviously that's going to create a darker smoke too. Or resin impregnated wood, which is otherwise known as fat wood. And knowing how to kind of identify that, and it's impacted a lot with turpin, which is the same kind of smell that you get with like pine oil or pine oil. And it smells just like that. And it's called turpin, and that's where they get turpentine from. But so when you're in the survival mindset, the number one thing that you have to do is stay positive. And it's really hard to be positive when you're panicked and scared. And it is very scary when you're in that truly realized situation of like, wow, I am really lost. And, what am I going to do to get unlost, to be found, or to find rescue? So you can self-rescue, or you can wait to be rescued. And, a lot of times search and rescue teams for the county, they'll go out for 3 or 4 days looking for you. And if they don't find you, they might call off the search, and your family might have to continue the search on their own. And they're going to have to organize and ask for volunteers to step up and look for you. And, I've been actually thinking about starting up a search and rescue private company just for the situation for my region, the California area. In case, because last summer there was a situation with a gentleman by the name of Philip Krasek. He came up missing in Pleasanton, in generally a regional park. So he's surrounded by built up areas, but it's just a regional park that happened to be on a mountain. But he went running or jogging. He was an ultra runner, I think, when it was like 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and so pretty hot. And I come to think that maybe he succumbed to heat stroke and dehydration, or maybe he got heat cramps, and but he was supposed to be in good health. But what happened was the Alameda County Search and Rescue did form up, and they did go looking for him with the help of many other agencies. But after about 3 days of searching, they called it off. And then the family was left to look for him. And then I think a few weeks went by, and then the Alameda County came back in again to go search, but to search a more expanded area, which ended up going from a 25 square mile area to a 100 square mile area. And not the same area they had searched before. They were expanding into a different area. And then it just so happened that somebody was up there, volunteering to search for him, and they found his remains. And by the time they found him, it had been about a month, and he had pretty much became a skeleton by then. And that has a lot to do with the heat, bugs and insects, and animals. And what a horrible way to go, and then the family that you leave behind, it was very distraught. So I was thinking about starting up a search and rescue company that for families, when the search and rescue teams for the county are called off, they can contract out with a company like that, which, like a service I want to think. I'm thinking about it. I haven't settled my mind on it quite yet, but provide that service, and obviously they're gonna have to pay for the expenses, which unfortunately, unless I can get it to be a charity organization, and then run the company off of charitable funding, which is also a possibility too. But there's a lot of details in that I will have to figure out. So basically, the survival mindset is when you find yourself in a situation where you need to survive, the number one thing is you need to stay calm. And then you need to start making your plan of action. And to do that, you need to evaluate your situation and your area. And then you need to start turning your vision into everything you see is a tool. And what kind of tool can I make with what I see based off of primitive survival skills? Because, if you went out there and you have a knife on you, that's great. Or if you have an axe or a hatchet on you, that's great. But you might need to be creative and create more tools that will help you, because, usually when people get lost, they're not completely prepared for being lost. It's a situation they didn't plan for, and it's a situation that was unexpected, and they find themselves in it, and that's just the facts. So there has been a few times where people were watching Man vs. Wild many years ago now, and Bear Grylls on TV, and then they'd go put themselves in a real world survival situation and die. And that happened, and and that's unfortunate, because I know on Man vs. Wild there's many disclaimers at the beginning of every episode, and we don't encourage people to go out and put themselves in harm's way ever, and that some of the things that you see being done on television shows is dangerous, and it's only being done by them because they have the experience, the training, and safety protocols that you might not see that are on camera, but they're off camera, and they have a bunch of producers standing by and cameramen, and there's usually always someone there. They're not completely by themselves, and it's like when I filmed my survival TV show that I was in called Ultimate Ninja Challenge for Discovery Channel. We filmed it in 2017 and it aired in 2018. We went down the river, but you can't see it on the camera, but off camera we had rescue river teams in kayaks and ready to rescue someone if something went bad. But you don't see that on the TV shows. They kind of ruin it for you, or when we're rappelling, you don't see that added extra lanyard attached or something like that, that safety mechanism is kind of hidden. I saw Bear Grylls on, I think it was episode 2 of his first season of Man vs. Wild. I believe it was episode 2. It was when he went to Mexico, to Copper Canyon, and he went across a canyon on a rope, and he admitted that he's using a safety lanyard that connects him in case he slips and fall. He would end up falling to his death. It was pretty far drop, but he was trying to show you how to go about doing it, so, but, and that's smart. It's smart to show people, in a worst case scenario, this is something you could do, and even in a worst case scenario, you should if you can, implement a safety mechanism. Because that's what survival is about. It's about staying alive, and there's no cheating in survival. It's like if you have a choice to start a campfire using the bow drill or the hand drill, or using a cigarette lighter or a ferrocerium rod, fire striker, it would just make sense. Go use the cigarette lighter. You should have all three methods. You should know how to do the primitive method, just in case you didn't have a fire striker or a cigarette lighter or a Zippo. But you should also know, how to do other methods of fire starting: the hand drill, the bow drill, fire plow, fire thong. All of them. All right, how to use bamboo, because it just depends on where you're at. If you're in the tropics, you probably got a lot of bamboo around you. You could do a friction fire, but maybe you're not. Sometimes especially like in the winter, it's hard to find something that is dry because, especially if it's been raining a lot and snowing a lot, so you'd only be smart to carry a fire strike. So there's no cheating in a survival situation. All right. The only cheating is if you cheat yourself because you didn't plan properly and do a proper inventory of your survival bug out bag or kit, or pack the right stuff in your backpack, especially if you're going to be going cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or whatnot. Or maybe it's not wintertime, maybe it's summertime. You're going to want to have at a minimum everything that you need to survive for 72 hours. Because usually when people get lost, they're found, typically, if they're going to be found, within 72 hours, and sometimes it's longer than that. Obviously, there's many different situations. There's many different survival situations. You could be, you're stranded on an island because you had boat problems. It's anybody's guess. It could be any situation. But the fundamental is survival and staying alive. And so the thing that's going to defeat you more than anything is having a bad psychology. And so you want to have that survival mindset, psychology, and that positive mental attitude, that slowing down and thinking before you do things and not taking unnecessary risk. Because in a situation like that, that's not the time to be the cool guy. That's the time to be the safety guy, all right, or girl, and so if you sit down and just do some survival meditation, and just calm down and realize, okay, let me get my bearings about myself. Where am I? What's north, east, south, and west? What can I use to help me get out of here and get back to civilization, to a built-up area? Am I in a valley? Am I on a hilltop? Am I on a ridge, or am I a draw? What terrain feature am I on? Or what terrain feature can I see? There's minor terrain features and there's major terrain features, and so you want to get your bearings and you want to get your direction, and and you want to locate bodies of water, especially following the direction that the flow of the body of water is going, because the body of water flowing will always lead you, in theory, to civilization. Even if it's a stream, well, you follow that little stream to where it's going, eventually it's going to go to, in theory, a bigger body of water, maybe a river, or maybe it'll turn into a creek, and then it'll turn into a river, and then that river turns into to a pond or a lake, and and I say it's in theory because not in every single case is that the case, but a lot of times it is, and, why would I take like, for instance, if you're walking through the woods and all of a sudden you stumble on a dirt road or a logging road or something, then you're like, well, what direction do I walk on this road? Do I go that way or that way? You can only go in two directions, and so, I would look at the terrain. Is this road going up a mountain or down a mountain? Because I'm going to go down, and also if it's cold outside, it's usually colder in elevation. So you're going to want to, go down in elevation. You want to, get down and like for every 1,000 feet, the temperature as you go down will increase by a few degrees, like 3 degrees, 4 degrees, and eventually it gets warmer. But so I mentioned that meditation thing. So when you meditate, or even if you're a religious person, stop and pray. Get your strength, get your emotional, mental strength, get your inspiration. All right. If you're injured, treat your injury. You're going to have to do some self first aid or wilderness first aid. And if you have a sprained ankle, a broken leg, or broken arm, secure it. It might hurt. It might take you a little bit. Put it in a splint. But take care of it so that way you can function. You might have to make a makeshift crutch to get around, and you might be slow moving. Maybe you're in a situation where you didn't have shoes and you need shoes, and now you're gonna have to, fashion together some makeshift bushcraft shoes. And you might have to use moss and bark and get creative. But one of the greatest gifts that we were given by the Creator is creation, being able to be creative ourselves, and to think outside the box. And every little thing you see out in nature is a tool. What can I use that for? You could, if you had enough roots, like spruce roots or something like that, you can fashion together a slingshot with the spruce roots. You'd have to, you make it long, you'd have to make a pocket, and you might have to use a couple strands of the root, and then you're gonna have to flex it, make it flexible, and then you can use it to sling rocks, and use that as a hunting tool if you had to. Get familiar with traps and snares, and how to make a deadfall trap, how to make a snare trap. You can use snare traps just to go fishing with. You can do funnel blocking, where you use a bunch of rocks in a body of water to trap fish on an inflow, and then corral them, and then you can go in there and start spear fishing the fish, or make a net out of vines, or you can fashion together cordage, and you make enough, you have a net. All this takes time, obviously, but just aimlessly running off might not always be the smart thing too. The experts, I guess myself included, always say at first, especially like if it's a plane crash or a vehicle accident, stay with the vehicle, stay with the plane, stay with the craft that you were on, a vehicle you were on. Stay near that and try to do signal and communication, either visual or audio, to communicate audibly but without a tech device. You might have to bang on something. You might have to try to find a way to make acoustic noises, and make them echo, make it loud. I already mentioned signal fires and stuff like that, but those don't always work, So to alleviate those headaches, having a communications device, having that rescue beacon, having, a handheld walkie-talkie, or paying attention to the weather is also really smart. You can alleviate a lot of distress by just, inform yourself of where you're going, doing your own research, getting a map and looking around. Don't rely just on the internet, but getting around and looking around at a map. Go to the ranger station, go to guest services center, or travelers service center, and get a local area map. Nothing beats having a paper map, and whenever I would carry a map, I learned this trick in the Army. I was an Army Cavalry Scout, and, we're pretty much masters of navigation on ground and in vehicle. It's hard for a guy like me that was a Cavalry Scout for many years to get lost. It's really hard because we're just trained really well on navigating. But we cannot be complacent, because if we don't keep up on those critical skills, they are perishable. So, you want to get back into, practicing your map reading, land navigation, and terrain association, and pace count. If you don't know how far you're walking, you're still going to have a hard time. You need to know, every time my left foot hits the ground, it's 67 paces. For me, 67 paces is 100 meters, or how many miles can you run at your average normal jogging speed, not your sprint speed unless you're a professional runner, but if you're just an average everyday Joe or Jane, and you're jogging, how many miles can you run in 20 minutes, and then keep track of time, and kind of track your distance that way. But nothing beats a pace count when it comes to tracking the distance that you're moving, and having a map and a compass, So if you don't have all those things on you, then it would really help you to know how to make your own map and compass, or use a sundial method, which is also known as the shadow stick or shadow tip method, or the watch dial method. And everything I'm saying you can't see, but when I mention it, you can pause the show and just pause it, especially if you're streaming it after it's been recorded. Right now I'm live, but eventually it's going to be uploaded, and then you can stream it. And if I say something like the watch dial method, pause it and then go Google search it. What is the watch dial method? You can watch a YouTube video on it. You can read an article about it. If I say the shadow stick method, if I tell you how to find north, east, south, and west in the northern hemisphere, look that up. But what if you live in the southern hemisphere? So you need to learn how to look that up there too, So, how do I navigate using celestial navigation, So, these are all things that you need to do, but you need to do them for the area you're in. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you're going to use the North Star, but and that's just a visual landmark that you can look and kind of rely on. But what if it's cloudy out and you can't see the stars? What are you going to do? So sometimes knowing when to sit tight and wait out the weather is also a smart thing, and it might be the only option you have. Especially, I wouldn't want you out trucking around when there's bad weather, or if it's too hot, So if you're in the desert, sometimes the best times to travel, because it's just so hot during the day, and then you have your nocturnal animals that are coming out at night. Sometimes it's like an hour after sunrise is pretty okay, or an hour and a half after sunrise, and maybe you can trek around just before the sun sets. And just, you're trying to stay away from the heat of the day and conserve your calories, because your calories is your energy. And once those are all depleted, you're going to have a hard time moving around without it, And also, if, it's really hot, you don't want to eat a lot of food without having the water to digest it, because your body takes water to assist it with digesting food. And that's what helps it break it down. Otherwise, because with no water in your stomach, you have stomach bile. I think it's bile, acid, and it's a real thick yellow acidic liquid inside there that is what breaks down your food, but it needs to be kind of diluted with water, and and naturally, in most cases people have that ability for a while. But if you're not drinking any water because water is scarce for you, then you don't want to be eating food and breaking that down, because that takes whatever water you do have to break it down. And you can start getting cramps and stuff like that. You could, lose your energy. And so, just playing it smart, and on the flip side, when it's cold, having some food in your stomach digesting helps with your core temperature to stay up, So, there's an equilibrium that applies to each person individually of what they need to survive and sustain. And so you really need to know your body, and you really need to know your mindset. And you need to always remember, stay in the positive. And sometimes in a survival situation, if not almost every time, is sometimes slow is fast, and slow is smooth, and slow wins the race. All right, slow down, and there's no reason to rush. All right, because when you rush, you miss a step, and it's always safety first. Your total objective is to risk mitigate. You want to eliminate your risks, the things that are going to cause you to have the potential to get injured. And so slow down. If you're not a really good climber, be cautious about climbing down terrain features. I know it looks high speed when you're watching survival videos and adventure videos, but if you don't have the proper training, even on how to make a harness, avoid it. All right, avoid what you can and just take the long way down. It's better to take the long, safe way down than try to take the fast way down and fail. Because if you fail, you die, or you get severely injured. All right, and then your life is really bad. Even if you survive it, you're in misery. All right, and help might not be coming if it doesn't know where you're at. And I also recommend, don't go off the beaten path if you find yourself lost and stranded. Try to stay, in areas where other people are going to tend to be. Don't go off exploring on your own, because you're just inviting problems, especially if you're in the Sierra Nevada area and you're up in the mountains and stuff, usually in winter you don't really have to worry about bears and hibernating, but that's not a guarantee that, it's December and it's snowing outside, so all the bears are hibernating. Well, not in every case, man. That's not every case. Okay, there's been times where there's been bears that have been out when you would expect them to be hibernated. All right, and that could be because they couldn't find enough food to hibernate, and they're maybe about to get ready to hibernate. It's kind of like every human being is unique and different. Well, every animal is unique and different too. In most cases the bears are probably hibernated, but this is just an example. Nothing's a guarantee in life. So, I wouldn't go out to the Sierra Nevadas to go out snow skiing and hiking and all that stuff, even in the snow, without bear spray. All right. And an air horn. And I would recommend, you should always have, the same little air horn that that usually people take to the football games and baseball games. It makes that really loud pitch scream noise. I would carry that. That's a great survival signal and communication tool. A signal mirror. is you can buy a survival mirror with a little star in the center of it that you can look through, and it's an aiming device, and practice using that thing. And, you watch videos, survival reflective mirror. Google search it, So having the survival mindset is all about being properly prepared, having a plan, sticking to the plan, communicating with other people your plan, and sharing the locations that you're going to go visually with them, and then having enough food on hand, having enough water on hand. I always carry a professional water filter with me, so I can filter a large volume. So they have straws and they have pumps. I like the pump because I can fill up a whole water bottle real fast. With the straw, you have to suck through it like a straw, and it's hard to fill up a container like that. So I prefer the pump, and I just pump it right into my drinking water container. If you're going to go out in the snow, have an entrenching tool, which is a shovel. And some of these entrenching tools has a pickaxe on the back of it, and then on the other side of it, it has the shovel. So it's like a 2-in-1 survival tool. There's many options out there. Find one that you like, and be happy with it. A good recommendation that when I was recording a survival podcast on Blog Talk Radio called Survival Northwest, or Survival Talk Northwest, with the guy that owns Northwest Survival Schools. His name's Travis Johnson. This was back in 2012. We were co-hosting a podcast, and we both agreed that if you're going to put an item in your bug out bag or your backpack for survival related stuff, try to make, and you can't do it in every situation, but try to make that every tool you put in there has 3 or more uses, because that will eliminate having to carry so much, because you don't want to carry a lot of weight. It'll slow you down, and you're going to get tired of carrying it. It's going to make you fatigued. It gets uncomfortable after a while. In the Army, when I was a soldier in the Army and the NCO, it was like, my pack weighs 50 pounds. It's like, oh, that's so cool because I have practically everything I own in it, right? But in the real world, we try to travel light, but we try to be prepared. So, and we want to be prepared for every situation that we have. So we're not going to carry everything we need, but we're going to try to carry smartly. So I'm of the philosophy that my best friend Len Montalvo and I have always had, and we worked in the security industry together for 24 years ago, and we're friends to this day. And the one thing that he always told me was work smarter and harder, because you always hear people say, hey man, it's better to work smarter than harder. And he was like, why work smarter and not harder? Instead do both. And I was like, I like that, man. I do. I really like that. Work smarter and harder. If you work smarter and harder than anybody else, you're going to be the best out there. You're going to succeed where other people have given up. Or you're going to it's just going to be easier for you. It just makes a lot of sense in that statement. Work smarter and harder.
You're listening to Survival Talk Radio, the Survival Mindset episode with Daniel-Shrigley.
If you need security services, try Metro Security Services out of Pleasanton, California. They offer armed security, patrols, and unarmed security. They do standing posts and special events. Metro Security Services, Pleasanton, California. Give them a call. Google search their name.
To all of you from Survival Talk Radio, we wish you a happy new year and that all your New Year's resolutions come to fruition.
So the survival mindset is just being mature about being prepared and being mature about how I'm going to react if I ever did find myself in a survival situation, because it's all glorified on television. It's all glorified on the internet. It looks all high speed and cool, and guys are making shelters and stuff like that, and but when you're really in it, it's not so cool no longer. It's not something that you really want, and it can be one of the scariest feelings you'll ever feel, and even experts panic. Okay, especially when they find themselves in a situation. It's like they forgot everything they know, and they do stupid things and make stupid critical mistakes, and those are experts, survival instructors. All right, and the reason why it is that way is because we're all human. Nobody's perfect. We're not robots. We're not, we have, emotions. Okay, and so and what it takes is just a reminder. Take the time to slow down. Evaluate the reason why you're in the situation. Evaluate the environment you're in, the climate that you're in, the geology, and start being a tool maker. Make things that you need to get your food, get your water, get your fire, and get your shelter. Okay, and then get your signal and communication going. All right, and then if you can egress, which means escape from that situation, move smartly and move out, but track your directions. Don't let yourself get lost, and put up signals. If you happen to find litter, say you find a big giant piece of trash and it's made out of plastic and it's very colorful, rip it up into little ribbons and tie it on branches, all right, as you walk every 50 meters, every 100 meters, or less, with little rocks pointing in the direction that you went, all right? So that way, if there is a searcher looking for you, they might see that signal and be like, oh, there's a ribbon here and there's an arrow of rocks pointing that direction. And then I see another ribbon with another arrow of rocks pointing in which direction you walked. Then you're pointing them in the direction that you went. It's just little things, just thinking outside the box and being smart about it. In the frontier days, we didn't have cellular phones and radios and all this technology. We just had basic primitive skills and the ability to make a fire and they survived. Obviously, unless you immigrated here, but people emigrated. So there's immigrants and then there's emigrants. And an emigrant is someone that traveled across the United States from like the East Coast to the West Coast. An immigrant is someone that is coming to the United States from a different country. All right. So, but people emigrated across the United States back when we didn't have technology in the frontier days, and they survived. And how did they do it? Well, for them, there wasn't really any panicking involved with it. It was just kind of taking it slow and doing what they needed to do, and then planning smartly and moving out smartly and paying attention to the season, But today we have all this technology and we have the ease of high-speed modes of transportation, so you can find yourself safe and secure one day and then all of a sudden in despair the next day because you jumped in your car and took off and decided to go exploring, and maybe the road washed out on you or something, and you slid down the hillside and your car flipped over, and now you're trapped inside an upside down car on the side of a mountain, and no one even knows you're there. And you don't know when anybody's going to come look for you. Who knows the scenario? But the one thing you don't want to do is create your scenario. All right. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to the show. I could probably keep talking about this topic and expand on it, more and more. I might even do a continuation. But I really do appreciate the subscribers, the listeners. I ask that if you haven't subscribed, please do, and share the channel on your LinkedIn account, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Parler, your MeWe. If you have a friend, send them this episode in an email. But put it out there, or send them this episode link or my show's link via the text message. But the more people you bring to the show, the better, because I think that everything that I say, especially in the survival area, really applies to everybody, regardless of what religion you are, what political party you are, what group you support. Doesn't matter, because everybody needs to know how to save their own life. And my radio show is a conservative platform, but it's also a survival platform. And so I don't concentrate on the politics. I do concentrate more on the survival and the security stuff, but I do once in a while dabble in the politics. I try to have something for everybody, but I'm not liberal, and I'm not far left leaning, and I never will be. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a combat veteran, and I've worked in law enforcement and the private law enforcement sector, so I have some ideals about what and how I think our country should be like, and I don't like the direction I see it going. And unfortunately, I'm also a spiritual man. I'm not unfortunately, but and so I see a lot of Bible prophecy stuff unfolding. So and sometimes I will talk about that too. But either way, if this show is for you and you like it and you want to hear more content, please subscribe, share it with your friends and family and co-workers, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And visit my website, daniel-shrigley.com, and I'll talk to you later. Full Spectrum Survival on Survival Talk Radio. Join us for Dad Talks, political debates, and pro-gun conversation.
You're listening to Survival Talk Radio, the Survival Mindset episode with Daniel-Shrigley.
To all of you from Survival Talk Radio, we wish you a happy new year, and that all your New Year's resolutions come to fruition.